Hey, folks, welcome. Hello, Robin out there in U-Toots land, and my man Brooklyn Lou is out there. Hopefully, you guys may be able to call in today. We shall see. I should have maybe someone join me if he can make it. Nothing was really promised, so maybe not, but it doesn't matter. The show must go on, as they say in the biz. So I'm going to go ahead and today react to Mr. Sean Carroll. You know, I was at the bar with him last night. We were talking about it, and smart guy and everything, but, you know, we get in disagreements sometimes. So I thought I would put him on blast. No, actually, we probably agree more than you would expect. Now, Sean Carroll is a physicist. He is someone who specializes in what they call the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, and his theory of everything entails an infinite amount of many worlds that branch off every time the quantum wave function decoheres. So the wave function, what they call the wave function, which is just a probability state, will collapse, you know, when it interacts with maybe a measurement, and it turns into a whole new universe or aspect of a universe, I suppose. I'm not a big quantum mechanics person, of course. The interesting thing about that, though, to his credit, is that Google's last quantum processor, named Willow, had achieved a significant milestone. It had solved like a very complex, specialized calculation in under 5 minutes that would actually take the world's fastest classical supercomputer 10 septillion, that's 10 followed by 24 zeros, years to complete. And this demonstration of quantum supremacy sort of indicates a breakthrough in quantum error correction, where the processor actually improves and becomes less error prone as more of these, what they call qubits, are added. Now, the thing about that is that, you know, this sort of is supportive of the many worlds interpretation, according to some people. Because many worlds says, like I say, the wave function is physically real and all branches exist. And other interpretations, though, would say that the wave function is simply just abstraction, a tool for predicting outcomes. Only one outcome is actually real. So, you know, the bottom line is that quantum systems can process information in classically intractable ways. Many worlds provides like a clear, intuitive narrative, you know, but the thing is, it's not uniquely supported by the experiment, because there are other interpretations that also predict the same outcome in quantum mechanics, is argued. It's called the Copenhagen interpretation, the de Broglie-Bohm theory, and cubism. Which is kind of like an idealist interpretation of quantum mechanics. So they all use the same math and they predict the same experimental results. So it's a little bit underdetermined in my view, but who knows? It may be the case, and this would explain a lot of things in our physical reality. And yeah, man. Robin says, I have a couple of his books, but they are pretty dense. Yeah, I could imagine, man. He's a very smart person. And look, you know, I always say, you know, I may disagree with someone like Sean Carroll on some things, but I'm a huge fan, though. I really like the way he argues for the Kalam cosmological argument against theologians like William Lane Craig years ago. Did an excellent job refuting him. Excellent job. and he's very, very smart. He understands things, and he has a very interesting take, though, on consciousness as well. So I was going to do a reaction where Sean Carroll actually speaks to Robert Lawrence Kuhn from Closer to Truth. I'm a big fan of this guy too. He's like really into the philosophy of mind, and his show Closer to Truth is all about that stuff, man. And he's broken down, I think, like over 300 models of consciousness that he can compare. And it's very interesting stuff. So what I wanted to do is kind of look at that, but I also wanted to add a bonus and actually look at another video by him as well. And this is where he was interviewed by another, I'm a fanboy of this little guy too, Alex O'Connor, another atheist that I'm really loved ever since he started on the YouTubes as well. So I'll be looking at that one as well. And, you know, I want to take calls if people want to join the stage, and we can discuss and we can just break down any possible problems with any of these arguments at all from different perspectives. Like I say, I don't claim to know anything really. I mean, I just have my own leanings or opinions, just like everybody else, you know. And I'm probably dead wrong, but you know, it is what it is, man. That's life of a human being, right? We're all just a bunch of shaved apes trying to make do with what we've got and make the best of what we can. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get this party started, and we'll all right, let's check this out, guys.
At that point, but I've continued to focus on it as perhaps the key to really understand reality. Now, you may disagree with that. I know you're a radical physicalist. So how do you deal with consciousness?
I think that consciousness is a way of talking about the physical world, just like many other ways of talking. It's one of these emergent phenomena that we find is a useful way of packaging reality. So we say that someone is conscious of something that corresponds to certain physical actions in the real world. I don't think that there is anything special about mental properties. I don't think there's any special mental realm of existence. I think it's all the physical world and all the manifold ways we have of describing it.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So there's no difference between the physical world and the experiential world, yet we do describe these in different terms. Like, we don't think rocks are having an experience. We don't assume that the physical atoms in the universe have conscious experiences and things of that nature, but we also assume that other humans do, right? So it seems that there is some kind of difference between the physical, what we call the physical, which is basically the quantifiable or the measurable, as far as I understand it. And then he talks about emergent. So I'd be interested to see what the pushback may be on this. Emergent seems to be one of those terms that applies to, like, say, the fire triangle, or the wetness of water, you know, from H2O combinations thereof. And so, Yeah, so I don't really have a problem with weak emergence, what they call weak emergence, especially in when the categories are of the same thing, like physical things can emerge into different brand new novel physical things. We see this all the time. I don't have a problem with that. And it's just easy to say that, well, consciousness is physical, so consciousness can emerge from physical things. But how is consciousness measured in the world? It's a first person subjective experience. It's the quality of a person's experience. How do you directly measure that outside of just the story? You know, that's the part that I'm having a hard time understanding. But hey, let's hear what the genius has to say.
Okay, give me another example of an emergent phenomenon.
Well, the classic example of an emergent phenomenon is the fluid description of the air around us. The fact that even though it's made of discrete particles,
Okay.
atoms and molecules, we talk about it as a continuum with a pressure and a temperature and stuff like
Okay.
that. It's a macroscopic, coarse-grained view.
Great example. The wetness of water would be something similar. Okay. Now, I would believe that consciousness is qualitatively different from that, because there is there is something that is like to have the feelings that I'm seeing. You call it an internal movie, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
That the phenomenology of this is a radical difference from getting the wetness of water from individual molecules or the fluidity of air.
Yeah, so this is my point that I was making, is that it's just qualitatively different. You know, physical stuff. In fact, all physical measurements are done in consciousness. So you're never getting outside of your mind in order to understand the mind. So it's a little bit different. I mean, we'd all have to admit that you know, there is a difference there. You know, physical things are what everybody can sort of intersubjectively measure together. Like, say, when the sun rises, the color of the sky, you know, the make of a car, perhaps, or whatever. We can all kind of like measure that, describe that together, and come to some sort of agreement. But subjectivity is different. That's internal. It's something private. So there's a difference. But I think that the move to say that this internal experience is just more physical stuff is kind of just a lazy way of trying to fit it into your worldview. That's what I'm afraid of. I don't want to be that way. I want to be a skeptic. So I want to take in all the facts about what we're talking about and consider those seriously when we discuss anything. We don't want to just, you know, make it fit our worldview, because that would be fallacious, right? We just want to understand that these things are different. Let's not just try to force them to be the same so that it can fit our narrative. That would be like religious thinking, right? And I'm kind of against that.
Right. And
you must disagree with that.
I do disagree with that. I think there's an irreducibility, but it's not in the reality. It's in how people talk to each other about it. There's something that.
But you see it, you live it, you
of
feel
course,
it.
That's right. And I can describe it in physical terms perfectly well. When you say, like, I now have experienced the redness of red, I think that is a set of words that can be mapped on in a very direct way to certain physical things happening in my brain.
Oh, nobody doubts that.
Right. Nobody really doubts that. But what we don't want to do is mistake the map for the territory. We don't want to confuse our descriptions with the things that we're describing. You know, this is sort of a new phenomenon, relatively speaking, this reductionist idea of the world. You know, we've gotten so good at our maps of describing the world that people think, for example, that the world is just the mathematics. The world is mathematics. Look at Max Tegmark's book on the mathematical universe. Roger Penrose is one of those people. But even Roger Penrose will admit that the difference about understanding or experience, which are both of the same sort of animal, that there's no mathematical equation for understanding the mathematical equation, right? There's no mathematical equation for your subjective interpretation of the color red. There's no math that describes that. And that's really the problem. And I think it's kind of described in the Mary Room analogy or thought experiment. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But I think that not acknowledging that there is a difference is sort of just not working for me. What do you guys think? I mean, it's just not working. You know, we got to be honest. Say, Robin says, well, everything that I know exists is physical. I don't have any justification to accept something non-physical outside concepts. But you kind of do, because your concepts are non-physical. Like your experience of the physical world is sort of done in consciousness. So I would argue that the only real thing you know, Robin, is your experience of the world, right? That's my opinion. You know how you feel. You know the observation of what you're looking at or hearing or feeling. You know that. That's the first thing you know, is that you're having this experience of it. And what happens is sometimes we confuse the thing that we're observing with what it is, right? And we know that this doesn't work because the mind is full of hallucinations and illusions, and we're easily misled by our perceptions, right? And so the things that we see are under question. The things that we observe, our concept of the self may be an illusion. Our free will may be an illusion. I think it is. I think all of these things are just appearances. And when we mistaken what we observe as the ontological reality, we're sort of like looking past the thing we do know, which is the experience. The experience is primary on my view. And hey, Joel, how are you doing? How you doing? And yeah, but concepts are just how we use language to talk about stuff, right? And language is based on thoughts. They're not based on the things we're thinking about. That's kind of circular, right? So like when you think about something, it originates in your consciousness, right? And so that's kind of the epistemic root. You know, I experience something, therefore I know I exist. Therefore I know there's a world out there. It's all based on experience. That's the first thing, right? But anyways, let me get back.
People who doubt that, but yes, many people do not doubt that, and I think that's all there is.
At least among my friends, nobody doubts that.
You know, when you talk about the existence of a cat, you know, this is a category that is not to be found in the fundamental laws of physics. A cat, a game of basketball is not to be found. These are useful categories for describing the world. I think that consciousness, self-awareness, experience, inner subjectivity, very useful categories for describing the world.
Now, but you know, some physicists see consciousness as sitting below the wave function, not just part of the wave, but actually sitting below it as the most fundamental thing.
Some physicists deny global warming. I mean, I think that's, some physicists is not a very good beginning to almost any sentence.
Okay, all right, right? I accept that. So, but with consciousness, one philosopher has said that consciousness is an output of the brain, like urine is the output of the kidneys. Is that something you would subscribe to?
It's no, I don't. I'm not sure I would use that exact metaphor. I mean, again, I think it's a very, very useful construct at a higher level of description, right? I can't imagine doing without consciousness as a way of talking about the world. I know what it means when people say, I'm conscious of this. I know what it's like to be that. These are real ways of describing the underlying.
When you're saying I'm
reality.
conscious of it, that's sort of an English locution that means I'm aware of something, but you could almost be conscious or aware of something in in a mechanical or zombie-like way in terms of behavioral reaction. But I'm talking about the phenomena that we all feel seems so radically different from anything that you see in the brain. I mean, I've dealt with it.
This is a good point. It's something that if you take physicalists at their word, then you should be able to simulate consciousness. If all consciousness is the processing of the brain, which is essentially rather like just processing data. It's just you take in input and you process it, and it can be all described essentially mathematically. It's kind of like Galileo says, anything that's physical can be described mathematically. But, we have experiments where you simulate the brain of a fruit fly. They did that back in January. They actually simulated the entire brain and connectome of a fly. And the fly in the simulation did fly things. It behaved just like a fly. But no one in their right mind thought that the fly was experiencing anything. There's no experience, and they're like, well, we map the entire brain down to every single neuron. So a physicalist should think that the fly was experiencing something. It kind of reminds me of that whole mind upload. You can upload your mind to the cloud and you can live forever. The transhumanism. But I don't see how just uploading the information, cloning all of your information is going to make that thing conscious. It'll just be a copy, a replica of brain processes that's very static, right? Presumably flies are conscious. They have an experience of what it's like. After all, they have brains, right? We don't want to assume that only humans have consciousness. Like that would be an argument from specialness. Like this consciousness thing is something only humans have because we're special in the world. I think these days we're getting away from that old-fashioned thinking. Like they used to think that animals were not conscious. And so don't feel bad. It's just like gears grinding. When you hear them cry, it's like gears grinding. They don't feel anything. So don't feel bad about your dog, when you kick it or some crap like that. That's crazy talk nowadays, right? I think consciousness is on a spectrum. Or not consciousness. I wouldn't say consciousness is on a spectrum. I would say that intelligence and qualia, the quality of experience is on a spectrum. Like, obviously, a dog doesn't know what it's like to be a human and vice versa, right? So there's a difference. Their brain is not able to take in that kind of information. But the consciousness is fundamental. You know what I mean? Brooklyn Lou is saying stuff, and I think I'm missing stuff here. Physical brains have randomness all by themselves. The descriptions we give the thoughts that come out of random brains will also be random. True. Yes, some thoughts can be random, but still emerge from a physical brain. Yes, thoughts do emerge from a physical brain. That is correct. I would agree to that. That seems to be what the evidence shows. But the experience of that random thinking has to be explained. What accounts for that? Because let's say an AI chatbot, it has thoughts, it responds, maybe. Or maybe it'll get to the point where you can call it a thought or something like that. But does it have an experience to go along with all that processing of data and thinking about your question maybe in a chat or whatever? Most people don't think so. They don't think so. There's something about consciousness in biology that seems to make a difference. But all that may change. All that may change, but it may not. But how that will change is mysterious. There's no answer for that, even in principle. And so that's where we get to the hard problem of consciousness. Yeah, we don't know is the best explanation, but that's not an explanation. I don't know is just a lack of an explanation. And so in the meantime, we keep looking, we keep discovering, we keep talking about it, doing philosophy, and all this mental masturbation that I do every day. Anyways, it's fun to think about. So let's go.
That you do with the probing of electrodes and electrochemistry and the genetic expressions. Do you believe that the phenomenology of what we see is, in an identical theory sense, two descriptions like the morning star and the evening star is the same?
Yes, that's right.
Is Venus is the same thing. I'm just calling it by different reasons because I didn't know that they were the same.
Absolutely. And I think that actually, to me, zombies, the idea of the philosophical zombie, something that acts in exactly the same way as a conscious creature, but just lacks the consciousness, lacks that inner subjective experience, is a great argument for my position, in the sense that it's very hard to really take self-consistently this idea of a philosophical zombie, because if you met a zombie, you ask them, what are you experiencing right now? They would tell you exactly the same thing
right.
that a regular person would say.
Right.
And you say, well, at least I know I'm not a zombie. Do you really know that? Of course, you're telling yourself you're not a zombie, you're experiencing, but so would a zombie. A zombie would say they're not a zombie. I think that there's really no way of boiling that thought experiment down to a consistent holding of the idea there could be something that physically acts exactly like me, yet lacks this important element of.
And see, this is called functionalism. Basically, you wouldn't know the difference between a zombie. So someone like Sean Carroll, if you're a hard materialist, physicalist, you would have to logically conclude that consciousness is just how you talk about stuff. It's just an illusion. It's just consciousness isn't what you think it is. It's just the output of information processing in a brain. But each of us knows that there's something it's like to see the color red versus the color blue, or seeing a sunset versus seeing, a beautiful beach. There's a difference between those qualities of experience. And then, we actually care for each other because we acknowledge that. We respect each other's feels, and these feelings matter. In fact, our consciousness is the most important thing of life, because the one thing or only thing we really have, so this quality of experience is important, Yeah, unless you're colorblind, of course. You're not going to see colors. It's like, I think it's also kind of interesting about these synesthesia people who hear in color, and what they see is represented by numbers and things like that. It's really interesting that people have different qualities of experience, but there's that quality of experience, right? One question that fascinates me is the color red, the same color red for all people, right? That's true. Now, the consensus, I think, at this point is that they think that it is the same for everybody, that color red. It's been a while since I looked at the research on that, but from what I gathered, they think that most likely when you see red, you see it the same way I do. How do they get to that point? I'm not sure, but they said that there's some sort of test you can do, like little simple experiments to show that. But that's the whole problem with consciousness, is it's an inner subjective reality, and you're not going to know it from a third person observation. That's why science is having a hard problem under materialistic premises to really talk about consciousness in any meaningful way. You can talk about the correlations and all of that, but to really know what you know, to really know what you experience when you experience, it's even hard for us to put into language. Like just a simple thing, when you see a tree, how do you describe it? How can you describe every single bit of that? You can't, because it's so rich. It's beyond your description. You know, it's way beyond your description of things. And that is a very interesting fact, Brooklyn Lou, about color. And Uncarved Block says it's still the same wavelength. However, it's an inheritable characteristic. Then we would on the main see it the same. Yeah, that's the theory. That's what I'm saying. Something like that. You know, I look at the trees and I see Jesus. Do you see God when you look at the trees, Robin? I mean, God exists. Just look at the trees. Obviously, there's something subjectively different. That problem with only being, Joel says, that problem with only being able to experience consciousness firsthand isn't just a problem for physicalism. It's a problem for any model that attempts to explain consciousness. Yeah, what do you mean by explain consciousness? I don't think it can be explained in words. That's the problem. It's ineffable. That's the one thing, that's the one word that may be useful, is this ineffability about it all. It's subjective, it's first person. And so, yeah, every model is going to have problems explaining it, you know, much less describing even one conscious experience. I see leaves I have to rake. Yeah. Let's go.
A zombie would say that I'm not a zombie and describe the inner feelings, but would still be a zombie.
That is the proposal, and I'm just pointing out how silly it begins to sound, because they would be sincere.
Look, I think
they would really think they're experiencing it.
They would really say
Why would
that
they lie?
It would be it's a sort of a behavioral reaction. It's sort of an input output.
That's right. And the difference between me and someone who thinks that there is something phenomenologically different about consciousness is that is all there is.
So an implication of your view, I think, is that you have to be 100% sure that at some time in the future, with future technologies, some people would say 20 or 100 years, some people may say 1,000 years, you would be able to upload your individual first-person consciousness to another medium, whether it's non-biological, another person. You would have to be 100% sure of that.
Well, I'm not 100% sure of anything in the world. I'm not 100% sure that the universe is
no, come on. Given your presupposition as a radical physicalist to consciousness, that's the given.
Yeah, I think the way I'm happy to say it is, I see nothing special about an organic human being that could not be duplicated to arbitrary.
Or if there were something, then you could just duplicate it in an organic human. You could create a human being.
We all know there are thought experiments, so we do believe, most people believe, that I could take out one neuron from my brain.
All right, no, we've
replace it with an electronic thing, and then I'm still just as conscious. And what happens when I take out two? And to me, that's not even an issue. Like, yeah, sure, just as conscious all the way down.
Okay, so you go all the way down, and you replace 100 billion and one neurons, and you will, and since we in the thought experiment perfectly reproduced every neuron, every connection, every reaction, etc., that you will have noticed no difference during the whole process. Okay, so let me take that one step further. That every time I put that neuron in, we both agreed it was a perfect replication. I made two of them, and I put one over here.
Yeah.
And then I made another, and when I got to the 100 billion, and you haven't felt any difference.
Right.
I have 100 billion of another Sean right here.
That's right.
And so now Where's the consciousness? Where's the first
There's
person
two conscious
experiencing?
things.
There's two conscious things,
Yeah.
but that's not your consciousness here.
No, well, no. If I'm the one here,
Wait,
then that's
wait,
another
what
one.
do you mean? So then
It's just like the branching of the wave function of the universe. There's now two copies of me that go their own ways.
but
So this is kind of where I understand Sean Carroll. I kind of agree with that because that's sort of like a non-dual sort of accounting on that thought experiment. Because if you think about it, he's just talking about disassociation. The problem is with the concept of self. So you, the self, may have been a different self when you were 5 than when you're your age now, or somewhere, anywhere in between. You were a different person. You were configured differently. Different experiences had happened. Everything sort of, you're kind of like on a path. And so the self, the story just keeps evolving. This whole story of you and who you are in your own story changes, right? And so if you were to somehow disassociate, you could use this thought experiment, but you wouldn't have to go that far. It seems like you just become, it seems like that's the case now when we have different people in the world. We have different people in the world. So if you were to split yourself off and be in another multiverse, would you be you? No, you'd just be another person. That's all. You may share common genetic traits and stuff like that. You were cloned or whatever. If you made a clone of yourself in this world, would you be your clone? Not over time, because over time, different experiences mold that clone into a different person. You become a different person. You can become a different person. Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised if Penrose thinks the world is mathematics because he draws on Gödel's theorem, incompleteness theorem, suggesting that the world cannot be captured by formal description. That's what I was saying earlier. Penrose, I think his idea about consciousness is to say there must be something other than your regular classical logic and math and stuff like that to really fully encapsulate consciousness and understanding. Because it would always, it needs to explain what it means to understand and stuff like that. But maybe he's promoting like a quantum. And so he's got this other theory called OR, objective reduction. So he says that in quantum mechanics, every time the waveform collapses, a conscious moment occurs. And so that can be fully described in quantum mechanics, which he's working to do, him and Stuart Hameroff. And they look at the microtubules within neurons where they're isolated enough so they won't decohere. But once the wave function collapses, then a conscious moment appears. And so, yeah, there's all kinds of different things that they try to come up with. But yeah, Roger Penrose does not think consciousness itself can be describable with mathematics. And Brooklyn Lou says, I like the idea that self changes moment to moment. Yeah, it's an obvious fact as far as I see it. I am not the same person I was even as soon as last year. I'm a different person than I was last year. But there is something that connects it together because of memories. That's the only thing that's connecting it, the memories and stuff like that. And so it kind of makes you wonder, if I had access to your memories, Lou, would we have that same sort of connection? I think we would, obviously. So this kind of points me to non-dualism, like Sean Carroll. And I take it further. I think we're all the same because we all share this thing called experience or consciousness. That's the same thing we all share in. That's what idealism is all about. We're just disassociated. Just like I'm disassociated from when I was 5 years old, or when I dream, I'm no longer associated with the waking life. But it's all within the same experience that I have, and that you have, and everybody else had. We all share in an experience. I am still a bitch. Man, you and Sophia, man, y'all ought to get together. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
But you have no awareness of this one.
That one has its own awareness. I have my own awareness.
Right. And you have it's not like you have a shared consciousness.
No, certainly not.
Right. You don't have a fractional consciousness.
Right.
So this is going in. So this is like your twin.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's not you.
No, that's a copy.
So then
There's 2 copies.
Okay. So then, but I just made a perfect, this is 100% the same as what you have.
Right. But this is a philosophical, this is a mereological question. This is the ship of Theseus, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you're the ship. If I didn't have the second one, you'd be the ship of Theseus.
Right. But the point is that if you want to sort of really get down to what the identity is, at every moment of time, there's a different thing. Right? There's a different configuration of stuff. There's this configuration of stuff at this moment of time, this configuration of stuff at this moment of time. If you're reifying the idea that there is some unified flow of conscious experience through time, I'm going to deny that.
Yeah, I'm not at that point. I'm just at the skeptical position of following what follows from your analysis that consciousness.
I have no trouble believing there's these 2 separate conscious creatures now.
But if that second one is not you, what is the difference? Because at T0, at T0, from a physical point of view, we would both agree they are exactly the same.
Right.
They're just in 2 different places.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. And so,
but it's the question, which one is you, is just meaningless. There's just 2 of them.
Yeah, and it really doesn't address what's really the problem. The problem is, why should there be any experience with any of these clones at all? Any of these, in that thought experiment, if you were to actually, it's just like when you have a child or whatever, you're bringing another being into the world. What explains the fact that they have an experience? You say, well, they have a brain just like you, they have a body just like you, and all of this kind of stuff. But of course, that is not an explanation. That's sort of just a model or a theory, right? It's very intuitive, but there's a lot of problems that go along with that. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. Why should there be an experience, that goes along with the brain? Of course, an experience will only capture a sufficient organ like a brain, or a system sort of like a brain, or something like that. Of course, no one really denies that. The question is why? Why is something like that conscious, but other systems we presume are not conscious, right? Is it complexity? Well, at what point in the complexity does the consciousness kick in? And why are there other systems that are even more complex, have more neurons than a brain? Say, like your gut has more neurons than your brain. Why isn't it conscious? Or is it? Is it conscious? I think maybe it is. We're just disassociated. You're disassociated from the experience that your gut is having. But it's all coming from the same consciousness. There is no split of consciousness. It's the same thing. It's kind of like with the split brain situation. You split someone's brain, then you have different perspectives within the same brain. One side of the brain is an atheist, the other side is a theist, as one famous example shows, right? But that isn't the splitting of consciousness. That's just splitting the perspectives, right? There's one overall umbrella of consciousness, and they're just expressed through different sets. And we're all just different sets. And so the universe could be the same thing. Maybe there's something it's like to be the overall universe. And then each separate, system within that universe has its own subjective internal experience as well. Just like in the split brain analogy, right? So it's just another way to look at it. You know what I'm saying? That isn't the function my gut evolved to perform. Right. Right. That could be the case, but we don't really know. Because, and if that's the case, then neurons is kind of irrelevant. Then what does neurons have to do with it? You might ask. But I tend to agree. I don't know. I wouldn't see why the gut should have its own conscious experience, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did. But who knows? I don't think that way, but that's just what I mean. Neurons aren't necessarily the key magical ingredient, is the point.
And it becomes meaningful if we take the original, which was you, with all your neurons replaced, and burn it.
Well, there's two people, there's two conscious creatures. If you want to start burning them, then, you know, by ordinary moral standards, that'll be a bad thing to do. Yeah. So,
but
just like having a duplicator machine.
Yeah. So you have the duplicator machine, but the you that didn't experience any difference during the switching process with neurons, you haven't experienced anything that, and you may not even be aware of this other thing that I've created on the side because I didn't tell you. Mm-hmm. And then if you're destroyed, your individual first person experience will go out of existence because you have this other one here.
Yeah. Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they will have identical experiences, but
they will have the memories, experiences, yeah. But they won't have your first person. You won't.
No, they'll have everything that I had by construction.
Right, but there would be two of them.
And there's two of them. You destroy one, then there's one of them. Right, and they will go their own future ways.
Right, but in terms of your internal sense of this individual, if you didn't know that this existed, and you were made to not exist, burning or something else, you would go out of existence.
Yes.
Okay. So if that's true, then that personal first person experience cannot be uploaded.
What would you tell a man who can scroll for hours but can't work for 10 minutes and hates himself for it every night?
I would say he's a loser.
That has a first person experience that is the same as mine.
But it's like an identical twin in the same as it's not.
It's much better than identical twin. It's really identical. Yes, that's right.
But it doesn't have your first person because
I think you are attaching some metaphysical continuity to this experience, some uniqueness to it. At every moment of time, there's a set of things that are having conscious experiences. You've described an elaborate way to take one of those and make two of them. And both.
Right. That's where I agree with Sean Carroll. He's spot on. The problem is with this idea of the you being some sort of metaphysical ontological reality. It's just a concept. You know, the you is just what we think. It's conceptual. It's not very it's subject to change. The you narrative changes all the time, so there's no real permanent standalone existence of a you. It's always in flux, as the Buddhists would say. You know, there's nothing but change, you know, and so Sean Carroll is kind of pointing that out.
Both of them can persist or not persist, talk to each other, never talk. Like all
Correct.
of those are possible, and none
that.
of that gives, in my mind, any special weirdness to the physicality of consciousness.
We're not at that stage yet. I'm just saying that if you are unable to be uploaded with your first person experience, because you can be uploaded, but you would be the same as this other entity over here, which would be a very close identical twin with all your memories, but it wouldn't have your first person experience.
And so I don't think you can say these statements you're saying without using the word you. And I think that's the problem. There is a person here.
See, yeah, he identified the problem. The problem is with the self concept. That's the whole thing. When you smuggle in the assumption that there is a special you-ness that actually has standalone existence, then you're going to run into some problems like that through these thought experiments, rather. That's the exact thing I was thinking.
who has conscious experiences. You're creating a
Right,
way of
right.
making an identical twin of them. There are
Right.
now two people with conscious experiences. They are both going to go on and do
Right.
whatever they do. Is there any objection to that? No. I mean, I think that
Is there a difference? Let me ask it this way. Is there a difference between uploading you, and now you're uploaded, and I'm not sure whether we destroy the original, we don't, and having this duplicate here? It sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right?
It's the same thing. So if you would be uploaded, do you feel, would that give you a virtual immortality when I'm using the word you in terms of your first person experience, or would you feel like it's a very close relative that will go on like my child, but it's more than a child?
I really think that you are attaching some magical reality to you-ness or me-ness. Like, me now is not the same as me a day from now, right? So,
but you have the internal coherence. You have the internal coherence.
They're related. They're certainly very related, just as I would be to this uploaded thing.
Right. There's a relation there. And the relation is the memories of that experience, but the experience just is what it is. That's what standalone is, the experience. That's when I say, when idealism says that consciousness has standalone existence or is fundamental, that's what it's talking about. It's that unchanging sort of base level thing we're talking about, you know. Now the thoughts, the story of the you, the self, all of that stuff, that's very dualistic thinking. You know, dualism would say that there's this separate you from your experience that you can separate out. I don't see how that follows. I don't see how that's really coherent when you really think about stuff, you know. And so, yeah, I agree, man. All of this is sci-fi stuff currently. Right, it is. But, you know, there's so many people putting billions of dollars into that crap. Not sure uploading is possible. Yeah, I just don't think it is. I couldn't watch YouTube without premium. I know, man. Sorry for all that. I've got to get premium going again. It always boils down to living forever. I know. That's what people need to get over, man. Just put your big boy pants on. You know, the you is not going to live forever because the you never existed to begin with. The you is just a magical idea, like Sean Carroll mentions. That's all it is. There is no you that's going to keep living. You know, the you is always in flux. All there is experience. You know, and the fearful part is this disassociation, because you're disassociated from, you know, after this body dies and that experience of the you goes away, then people are terrified, you know. But you are disassociated from when you were 5 years old or before you were born. Are you afraid of all that? No. You're not afraid of what happened before you were born because you're disassociated from that. You're only afraid of the imagination, you know, this unknown. You know, you create this unknown imaginary reality of not existing. Oh, I'm scared of that. Why? If you don't exist, there's nothing to be scared of. You know what I mean? You're only scared of what you know. You know, if I know what it's like to go to war in Iran or something like that, being bombed by all these fucking Iranian missiles and drones and things like that, then I'd be scared to go back there because I know about it. But if you don't know about stuff, you're really not that scared of it. That's why experience is your best teacher. When you experience some shit, that's when you learn about shit. That's when you remember shit because you had that experience of it. That's what's fundamental to all this shit is the experience, you know? Anyways, this is almost over, and I'm going to go into the next.
There's two consciousnesses.
So
there's the uploaded one, and then there's the physical.
So
one.
your argument is that Sean Carroll now and Sean Carroll tomorrow morning is the same relationship as Sean Carroll here and Sean Carroll that will be uploaded.
It's very similar, obviously. It's not exactly identical because of the terms of the thought experiment, but
Sure.
it's essentially the same. Yes.
Okay, so that would mean that in your mind, consciousness is certainly not an important fact in the universe. It's a contingent accident of what happened here at some point.
Depends what you mean by important. It's very important to me. It's as important as cats and baseballs and so forth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he was saying, that consciousness isn't important. I think he was just making the point that this idea of the you is kind of a conflation of consciousness. You know, it's a mode of consciousness. It's you're creating narrative, you know what I'm saying? Not necessarily that your experience isn't important just because it can't be described by physics necessarily right now. But here's another thing. I wanted to also react to this too, because I never got a chance to. This is Sean Carroll lately, interviewed by Alex O'Connor. And this is pretty interesting. This is where they get into the Mary Rooms thought experiment.
Science. It's incredibly complex. We don't know exactly what's going on, even at the physical level in the brain, much less the emergent level of psychology and experiences and things like that. And you're saying, well, I am a little bit unsure how to connect one to the other. And I'm going to say that is the completely unsurprising result of this. Like, why in the world would you expect to, with our current state of the art, to be able to make explicit that connection? And the fact that you don't is certainly not any reason to change our fundamental notion of how reality works. It's obviously to admit that we don't understand how the brain works very well. I use the analogy, it's like saying, I can't find my car keys, I should buy a new car. That's not the right strategy to use in this situation. You have to be a little bit more patient than that.
Yeah, I suppose for the person who thinks that consciousness is inexplicable on physicalism, it's more like, yeah, I don't understand how a car could even possibly exist in the universe as I understand it. And people sort of view consciousness that way. And I think commonly people will say, and there are more and less sophisticated versions of this, but they'll say, look, consciousness is just something science will explain. Like it's no surprise. It's super complicated and we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But there are philosophers of mind who don't just want to say science hasn't explained consciousness yet, but that it in principle cannot do so. It seems to occupy a different kind of space. Thomas Nagel is the sort of famous name here that I think most succinctly puts this case in what is it like to be a bat. And one useful way of getting at this is with a famous thought experiment that I've heard you speak about before, but I had a question about your interpretation or response to this. Famously, Mary's Room. I talk about this all the time on the show. And most people are familiar, Mary is in a room, it's totally black and white. She experiences no color for all of her life, but she is given every single piece of information that could possibly be written down onto a piece of paper and understood and comprehended by her. She's given that and she becomes an expert. She learns about the wavelengths of light. She learns about the biology of the eye and the brain chemistry and all of that kind of stuff. But she's never seen blue. And then at the end of her life, she steps outside, she looks up, she sees the blue sky. And the question is, does she learn something new? And the implicit answer is, yes, she learns something new. She learns what it's like to see blue. And whatever that extra thing is that she's learned is what consciousness is.
Right. So the idea with that is that experience is not the map. We can describe the neurons firing in the brain, read about all of that, but that will never give you the experience of what it is, whatever it is you're talking about, right? Color, whatever those things are. Again, mistaking the map for the territory is the whole point of that argument. By the way, the guy who came up with that argument abandoned that same argument because he thought it was a argument that pointed towards epiphenomenalism, which he does not subscribe to. I don't know if any of you guys know what epiphenomenalism is, but it's basically the idea that the brain is kind of like or the consciousness is kind of like the steam off an engine, the engine being the brain, consciousness being the steam. It just lifts off the brain. It doesn't have any sort of force in reverse. It's just a product of the brain. It's not it has no interaction. In other words, it doesn't mysteriously affect the brain. The brain simply does what it does, and consciousness comes out of it as a phenomenon, an epiphenomenon. But this is a very not so popular view anymore. And it's for the same reason that Frank Jackson abandoned the Mary Rooms experiment. He thought that it was leading towards that sort of idea. Because, if, the brain's output is just the experience of color and it can't be described, by the thinking of a brain, like writing it down or talking about it or anything like that, it would seem that consciousness is just output. That's the reason why he abandoned the argument. And a lot of people think it's because he became a physicalist or something. That's not really true, I don't think. I think he abandoned it because he wanted to avoid epiphenomenalism. Anyways, let's keep on going here.
I've heard you talk about this before, and I just want to give you space to respond to that. And then I've got a follow-up question if your answer remains the same as it did when I last heard you speak about that. So what do you think about that?
I'm a little bit thrown off my game because it's always red that she's never seen, and you're making it blue, and I'm not quite sure how to change gears so quickly. Alex. So let me give it a try. And I think there's I have one opinion, but there's different ways of stating it. So let me state it this way. Mary's Room, even though Frank Jackson, who popularized the thought experiment, has repudiated the conclusion that it is used to draw, many other people still stick with it. I get that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, he's totally a physicalist now.
Wow, really? Do you know why? Like, was there like
because it's a bad argument. I can explain why I think it's a bad argument. I cannot.
Yeah.
No, he didn't abandon it because it was a bad argument. It was because he didn't want to, support epiphenomenalism, which the thought experiment does. But I'll let them explain the argument in case you guys haven't ever heard this thought experiment. So you'll see what I'm talking about.
I can explain why he changed his mind about it. But look, it's supposed to be a refutation or repudiation. I was mixing up those two words together, of physicalism. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to reach the conclusion that physicalism can't be true. Okay, well, what is the physicalist saying about what's happening to Mary, the color scientist, in her room? He's saying that when she's in her room and everything is black and white and she's reading all the books on color theory and getting all of these pieces of information, she's learning things. And what that means to the physicalist is there are certain connections between certain neurons in her brain that are firing and strengthening so that when you ask her questions, she can answer them, et cetera, et cetera. A usual physicalist reductionist account of what it means to be learning those things. Then she steps outside, blue light wavelength photons impinge on her retina for the first time, and she sees the color blue. What happens to the physicalist? Different neurons fire in her brain and different synapses are strengthened. No one disagrees with that. And now she says, oh, now I know what it's like to see and experience the color blue.
TurboTax locations are now open in your neighborhood. So, hand off your taxes to an expert today. Now, local experts do your taxes with 100% accuracy.
Hey, MK, where are we going?
Oh my God.
We're going to Mama. So we're going.
Where in the world is there any problem with that? Like, where is the refutation of physicalism?
There is no refutation of physicalism on that, in my opinion, because it's not really. A lot of physicalists will say that they'll say it's attacking the wrong level of abstraction. So the problem is mistaking the map for the territory. That's what it's supposed to be saying. But a lot of physicalists will say, no, it's just different neurons fire when you experience the color red or the color blue than when you're reading about it in a book. It's just different neurons, but it's still the same neurons. So, or different neurons, but it's still neurons firing. That's what explains the experience of both of those things. When you experience reading about color and then you experience actually seeing the color, it's just different neurons fire. So how does that refute physicalism? Well, that's actually not the point of the experiment, in my opinion. It's why is there any experience at all with either of those things? Why is there an experience associated with the firing of neurons? And a physicalist will say, well, just because there is. It just is. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't explain anything. You know, that's the problem. That's why we do philosophy. That's why we question our assumptions. Okay, we all agree that there is, but that's the very thing we're trying to explain, you know? So just deflecting to, well, all it is neurons firing, whether you're reading about blue or experiencing blue. You haven't done anything. Well, actually they have, as long as you're looking at the right layer of abstraction for that thought experiment.
Listen, the physicalist explains this with 100% fidelity. There's nothing missing.
I think the issue is quite specific. At least the issue that I think is interesting, which is that we're indebted to Galileo for telling us that maths is the language of the universe, and the scientist wants to say that everything which it's possible to scientifically explain is something that you could, in principle, formulate in the language of mathematics. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's sort of the tradition that we inherit from Galileo, right? Is this idea that anything which is scientifically true can be mathematized. And if something can be mathematized and explained or described in a mathematical formula with letters and numbers, then in principle, everything that there is to know could be written down onto a piece of paper. Now, I understand that, like, when Mary exits the room and there are like different neurons that fire in her brain and that gives rise to the experience, that's fine. But if there is any kind of knowledge that she gains, anything that you could class as knowledge, and if the scientist, to use the sort of religious buzzword, believes that anything which can be known can be described in the language of mathematics, it would imply that the very knowledge that she has of that experience of blue could in principle have been written down onto a piece of paper, such that when she read and understood that thing on that piece of paper, she got that knowledge that she gets when she walks out. She could get that just from reading something that's written down. So, yeah, right. The map with the territory, that was the whole point of that thought experiment. At least that's what I get out of it. And but you know, the physicalists are sort of committed to say that, to sort of deny that, to say that there's no difference. There's no difference between experience and the description. There's none. You know, all that there is just physical stuff. That's all it is. And we describe it with mathematics. But that just is a denial. It's sort of like sticking your head in the sand in a way, to me. That's what it is. Why is Alex, using religious buzzwords? Probably because he talks to religious people too much, man. He even admitted that on one of his podcasts, that he talks to too many religious people and, you know, learns their lingo in order to relate with them better. The origin of language is an interesting question. People say it evolved from points and grunts, but how can that convey the meaning of meaning? Exactly. Man, Eamon, you get it, man. We are with each other, man. Exactly. You know, that's the problem. Experience is first person. That's the whole issue. Like, the problem for me is specifically the fact that it's not so much about physicalism, but more about scientific description. The idea that one day science will be able to explain or describe consciousness implies to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that science will one day be able to take that knowledge that Mary gains when she steps outside of the room and write it down onto a piece of paper, such that just by reading that thing on the piece of paper, you would get the same knowledge? I don't think that's possible. And so my question to you is, do you think that's possible? And if it's not, then what is like a scientific description that cannot be written down in that way?
I think this is just very clearly a problem with getting mixed up linguistically, not science.
Yeah, exactly. It's a linguistic problem. I'm glad he can acknowledge that. But if you're willing to acknowledge that, then why be committed to what the language is saying on that? The physicalist language is the one playing the semantic game. You know what I mean? And then it's almost like a lot of what I hear from Carroll and others is this taxi cab fallacy. And what a taxi cab fallacy is when you use an argument when it's convenient, and then you kind of jump out of the argument when it's no longer convenient anymore. And it's kind of like you're playing the argument when it's convenient, like jumping in and out of a taxi cab. And so I hear a lot of that, you know, and that's the problem. And Eamon says, I wonder why no linguist had proposed a version of Chomsky's universal grammar that existed in Platonic space the way Penrose thinks mathematical truths do. I know. Because, you know, the thing about mathematics is it's a very rigorous kind of language. It's a language of logic and connection. And, you know, linguists, I think they know that some languages are more constrained than others. You know, it's constrained by experience. You know, you can only talk about what you know, and you can only know what you've experienced and share. You know, X music, you don't understand what universal grammar theory is. But yeah, man, I think love is the universal language. That's what's universal.
Scientifically or philosophically. As I said, when Mary reads about the science of color or the artistic descriptions of color, certain neurons do certain things in her brain. When she sees the color blue, different things do different neurons do different things in her brain. I could write down what the neurons are doing with no problem at all. But me writing down what the neurons are doing doesn't make the neurons do that. What makes the neurons do that is seeing the color blue. And again, I don't think the physicalist has any problem capturing any of this.
So in agreement with that, you could write down what the neurons do, but that's not going to make the neurons fire.
Yeah, exactly.
When those neurons fire, and I could describe to Mary what neurons will fire in which way when she does step outside, such that she has a complete understanding of the neurons that are firing. Yet, when the neurons actually do fire, she will discover that it's not just that, oh, well, neurons are firing in my brain. It's like, oh, and I'm having this experience. In other words, yeah, like, those neurons don't fire until she steps outside, but you could describe what those neurons are doing, and it seems like she would still not expect or know what it's like to see that blue, even if she had a full understanding of those neurons, implying that the whole totality of what you could scientifically write down on a piece of paper would still not include that experiential aspect of blue. And
Yeah, it's just another dimension of knowing stuff. You know stuff. There's experiential knowledge, and then there's book knowledge and stuff like that, intellectual knowledge or whatever. But yeah, man. So what do we got? Excellent Music is saying universal grammar is just the theory of grammar common to all language at a basic level, hard-coded in the brain. Well, didn't Chomsky propose something called like poverty of the stimulus or something like that? Like, for example, like children would hear incomplete sentences, for example, like the hearing is imperfect. yet you can acquire like highly structured grammar. So like something sort of pre-wired. So it's like a set of abstract rules and constraints, and it's sort of shared across our languages. Like, I don't know, languages sort of distinguish between nouns and verbs. You know, you kind of just know that innately, maybe. Ways to form like answers or questions, like structural limits, stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not a big expert on that stuff. I remember I looked into it before. Alex is fully engulfed in mental masturbation here. It's all mental masturbation when you get down to it. When you get right down to it. Exit music, yes, and it's contentious because they haven't found anywhere in the brain that it resides. Hence, I said a Platonic version of it. Oh, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, that's kind of like interesting. But yeah, man, look, do you guys want to engage? Come on stage, call in. It looked like some of the folks that were going to join me today couldn't do it. They emailed me and said they were all got tied up. But supposedly we're going to try to reconvene next week to do another reaction. But anyways, man, also I promised that I would do this to read comments from some of my videos to kind of give a shout out to folks that are leaving comments and stuff. Now, some of these comments are kind of what you call it, extensive. So I'll go ahead and get into that really quick in case you guys are out there and want to hear what my reaction is to your comment. Let me share the screen. So this was from my video I did, I think yesterday, which was why scientists are racing to understand consciousness. And so we've got Stephen G 4182. He says the universe as fractal holographic split brain personality. An analysis of my input. Assuming that consciousness is fundamental and the first arrival in the universe occurring prior to the wave of particle transition, the uncertainty principle, combined with the wave of particle transition mechanism, oh my goodness, leaves open the possibility of free will, where free will is defined as a change in wave state. If consciousness is fundamental and equivalent to a bounded quantum state prior to wave to particle transition in biological system, as experimentally suggested by the anesthetic efficacy of xenon nuclear spins. Wow. I'm not sure my audience is going to be able to follow all that, bro. But I think what you're saying is because of quantum indeterminacy, that it plays a role in our decision making. So we sort of split in our decisions to do something. And I guess that would say that, you know, because the way that physicists talk about it, theoretical physics, it's either determined or random. So are we saying that our decisions are determined or are they random? I don't think that either of those things entail ultimate free will, but there may be a degree of freedom that looks like free will because of its, you know, you're unable to really predict what's going to happen there. You know, sometimes we can't even predict what we're going to do. We may think we're going to, and there's statistics, but there's always that slight probability that you will not do what it is that the statistics say you will, right? Maybe that's what you're talking about. Oh man, so yeah, call in though, man. Brooklyn Lou, are you out there, man? Or Robin, if you want to call in, please. There she is. What's up, Robin?
Not much. What are you doing?
I'm doing it, man. We're just over here doing it, living it up. And yeah, that comment was a little bit much for me to go into, so I'm not sure if it would pay off. But but what do you think so far? What's on your mind?
Oh, I don't know. See, I got a phone call, so I missed the end towards
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Well,
was just at the very end, basically. At the end of that video, basically Alex was kind of recapping what Sean Carroll's view was there.
Oh, okay.
That consciousness wasn't, that it's something that about the Mary's Room experiment that doesn't really defeat physicalism or anything like that. And I would kind of agree with that. I think that depending on what you're trying to point out, can be a problem, because if you're trying to point out that mistaking the map for the territory is the point, then I think that's valid. I think anybody could agree with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think they're coming at it from two different, Alex is coming at it from a philosophical position.
Right.
Where Sean is coming at it from what I don't know what his exact field is, but a scientific or sort of a. Yeah. I mean, and then of course, like people like Sam Harris, like people who study neurosurgery and stuff like that have, they come at it from a different place too. But yeah, I think the philosophy of it is a unique position. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not really actually going into the, like you said, the how.
Right.
Yeah, right. And I think that's the part we don't understand yet, is the how. We don't know. We haven't figured out yet how this all manages to create an experience for us.
Yeah, and I feel like in actual science, which is just the method, if we're going to be really straightforward about it, science is just the method.
Yes,
it's not philosophy. It's not metaphysics. So all it's going to tell you is the pattern. It's going to demonstrate or observe patterns and regularities and behavior of the universe, right? To whatever you're looking at. But it doesn't have anything to say about its origin or, what are the metaphysical facts behind it or anything like that. And the thing though with folks like Sean Carroll, the reason why he gets on so many of these philosophical channels like Closer to Truth and Alex O'Connor, and he's been on a bunch, right? The reason he's always finding himself in those discussions, and he does debates with theists and philosophers, like with Philip Goff. He did a debate on stage with another philosopher. He's always debating philosophers, right? And you wonder why. Why does this scientist has his hat in the ring with philosophers? And the reason why is because Sean Carroll, although he never likes to admit it, he is engaged 100% in philosophy, because he identifies himself as a hard physicalist. And yes, physicalism is a philosophy. It's a position about the nature of reality and the mind. So what physicalism is claiming is, and it's sometimes called materialism, is that everything that exists is metaphysically physical. That is, it can be described in terms of matter, energy, and the laws of physics, and that's what it ontologically is at the heart. So in other words, there's no such thing as a fundamentally non-physical entity. Mental states, consciousness, thoughts, and feelings are entirely dependent on physical, metaphysical properties, right? Like the brain or something like that. And it's a philosophy because it addresses fundamental questions about reality, not just specific facts. So it makes claims about the ultimate nature of existence. So that's what makes it a philosophy. And it's related to science because it's inspired by science, because science repeatedly explains phenomena in physical terms. But physicalism is broader than science, right? Science describes how things happen, like we were talking about, but physicalism claims that what reality is at heart is physical things. That's what exists. And so that's why he finds himself in all of these sort of debates with philosophers, you know, because those things can be challenged, you know?
Yeah. I think I see science as sort of a subset of philosophy. Like philosophy came first, and it's, you know, science is a method that we developed and with the tool of philosophy. But I think that for studying things like neurons and how they function and stuff, and how I think that only, you know, there's that specific category of philosophy is pretty much the most useful tool. Like, like I'm not going to sit around here and think of how that they work. You know what I mean? Like, I can't philosophize that, no matter how much I spend time doing it. Like, I mean, it takes.
I've heard you a lot do that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it takes like it takes measurements and like it takes, you know, it takes actually. And the thing about it is like, I look at it this way: like, a brain is one of the last frontiers, like especially within the human body that we have. And I'm glad, really, in a way, that we haven't studied it a lot, because of, you know, with some of the practices that humans have went through while they were trying to learn about the human body. Like, it would be kind of like really terrible thought if they had started, you know, like trying to learn a lot about brains a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, we still may not even be to the part, but I think we have more ethical practices now to study brains than we ever did before. But, you know, I mean, that's definitely something that at one time, not many years ago, that they even needed to be messing with. But
yeah. Now, there has been a lot of philosophy of science that got dropped because of some hidden assumptions. And a lot of people, you know, what's really a shame is a lot of people forget this. Even it's been pointed out to Sean Carroll by Philip Goff. It's been pointed out to people like Lawrence Krauss when he debated some philosophers some years ago, that this has been refuted. There's a philosophy in science called the verification principle. And so it's a claim from logical positivism. And what it says is that any statement is meaningful only if it is either empirically verifiable, meaning testable by observation experiment, like science. For example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. That can be empirically verifiable. But it's been pointed out, though, that this is sort of a self-refuting philosophy to try to smuggle into science, because the strongest refutation of it comes from the fact that the principle itself is not empirically verifiable or analytic. Yeah. So to say that only empirically verifiable things have meaning, then that means that the verification principle has no meaning.
I got a phone call. I'll be right back.
Yep. So it's just one of those things that, you know, is in the philosophy of science that has changed over the years. But unfortunately, a lot of folks, especially with a lot of laymen you speak to, will forget that or don't even know about that. Take it for granted. Hey, Lou, how's it going, brother?
Hey, Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing a lot better now that I see you, man. I haven't seen you in so long. You're a wonderful, wonderful face to see right now. And how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing okay. I really enjoyed the the discussion here. I think I tend to agree with Sean Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tend to think like him. Right. As far as how it relates to what I'm doing, I think the most important thing that I get out of this is how a person views consciousness in terms of its relationship to the brain. I think that is like a vital subject.
Mm-hmm.
And if you view consciousness as emerging from the brain, then that's kind of goes against or it goes against theism, right? Because theism is all about a soul that is separate and unique and, has its own properties and identity. That's what goes to heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't buy that, if you think consciousness emerges from the brain, all that kind of goes away. And that's kind of like I think a person should ask, does consciousness, if someone dies and the brain is dead, is there any more consciousness for that person? And my answer is no. And that's why I'm atheist. I don't run down that, magical thinking type of stuff.
Yeah, and I would agree. That's the see, this is the point about the difference between dualism, like theistic dualism, versus non-dual idealism. This is a very common confusion. So, and it's the reason why it's a motivating factor for why you have physicalists, for that very reason you mentioned. Like, in the Enlightenment, we started discovering that you can learn so much about the world by the method of science, by, looking at patterns, regularities, and all of this kind of stuff. And then you've come to learn that a lot of that stuff actually refutes some of the claims of theists, that you actually don't need gods to fill the gaps of not understanding certain things. And so it became very natural to say, well, we don't need religion anymore. We don't need this sort of dualistic thinking that there's this soul that's separate from the body, but there's an even more ancient philosophy. But the problem is it's not embedded in the West. It's embedded in the East, and it's called non-dualism. And so what that is to say is that we agree with the physicalists. There is no separate soul and body, but it's actually it's actually only the mind or consciousness and the representation we call the physical reality, right? That's what the consciousness represents. So what they would say is that all contents of consciousness will show up as physical things. You're never going to find a disembodied mind. You're never going to see that. But see, that's the assumption that the people in the West have sort of smuggled in. They're saying, well, if this idealism stuff is true, then where do we find these disembodied minds? Where do we find these souls that float off the brain? It's just that they've let the confusion of dualism infect their mind. They're not familiar with the different culture of idealism that started in the East. They're not familiar with that. All that idealism is saying is the same thing, that the physical, the way that, but it's all a representation within consciousness. And so to really help someone who is embedded in our culture in the West, I found that the best thing to do is to at least get an understanding of what the position is not really to preach it or teach it like that, but to actually just ask questions. And when you ask certain questions, it will reveal to your interlocutor, oh, now I see the problem with physicalism. Now I see what you mean why your paradigm is a little different. You know what I mean? You ask certain questions, it'll get you there. But yeah, I would agree with you, Lou. This whole idea is embedded in religion in the West, souls, dualism, stuff like that. But yeah, there's a big difference between idealism, non-dual idealism, and this sort of dualistic religious stuff, theism and stuff like that.
Well, I've been debating in writing a Christian guy, fundamentalist type guy, and one of the points where we get to quite often is he's all into the cause and effect, like the Kalam. There's a cause and effect, and I think that when you get down to the cause and effect of things like the universe, that it's really speculative, like before the Big Bang type of stuff. I mean, we're speculating, right? Now, I think it's very fair and honest to say, I don't know. I don't know what happened before the Big Bang. I'm not sure about that. All right. Mm-hmm. But there's this certainty thing that I've also been really focusing in on some of my videos. And that's religion likes to tell people they can be certain. And that certainty comes through your faith, right? Mm-hmm. You make this leap of faith and you say to yourself, well, I'm going to be certain because I simply believe it. And because I believe it, that makes it certain. And that's comforting for the mind. It kind of eliminates the lack of certainty, the lack of understanding. But I think that's a real trap because to me, nobody really knows exactly what happened or took place before the Big Bang. Unless I'm mistaken. Does anyone know that? Like what actually, happened?
You just have, it's just models after model. Like you've got the Big Bang model, but you've also got the cosmological cycles model. You've got the Big Crunch models. You've got the quantum foam model. You got the quantum loop model. You've got all these different models for how the universe came to exist. But all of them are just modeling done within people's inferences. People are just taking guesses at it. And they all use the same math. They use the same math to come to the same conclusion. Therefore, the universe exists the way we see it, based on all of these things. And so, yeah, it's underdetermined. Like you said, it's underdetermined. No one really knows. And also, you got to understand, how are they approaching it? They're approaching it from a observational map making sort of approach. They're not looking at it from maybe a different kind of approach, right? Like, for example, like you had mentioned something early on, you talked about causation. And so like idealism would say that mind or consciousness is fundamental and the physical world is a manifestation, appearance, or construct within consciousness, right? So unlike theism, this does not posit a deity. There's no need for an intentional creator. Causation can emerge from the structure of the consciousness itself, not from a divine agent. So the way this works is that causation as a rule is intrinsic in the structure that produces just a stable sequence of events. All we really see are experiences unfold. That's what we see. So one experience necessarily leads to another within the space of consciousness. So think of it like internal logic in the system of consciousness, not imposed from the outside, right? It's an internal thing. And we know that that's a valid way to look at it, because how many times have we gotten it wrong, right? So like events in consciousness interact according to lawful functional relations, right? But physical causation is just the mapping of these functional relations onto what we call matter, right? So this avoids the need of gods. Causation emerges from, internal dynamics of a mind, like not a divine lawgiver or anything like that, right?
But aren't like one thing I'm noticing is how fear is used to control people. And there's like this fear that I'm feeling when I talk to people that are immersed in high control religion environments. All right. And the fear is to actually say, gee, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
That's like very scary to them. It's like, and the religion comes along and gives them an absolute, God did this. All right. So that's the answer. And they feel comfortable with that. But they're being dishonest, in my opinion, because they don't know. They don't know. I mean, they don't know what happened before the Big Bang. They just claim they do. There's a claim there, but they don't know it. And for them to say, I don't know that, I think is really scary to them. And
it's an ego killer.
And that's when the religion comes in and eases their fear and tells them, well, yes, you do know. You just have to believe by faith. So they deposit faith into the picture, and somehow that makes the person feel better.
What people do you know that believe in the Big Bang that are religious? Because, like, I live in Kentucky. These people, like, like the Big Bang is way beyond what they believe. we have a replica of the Magic Zoo boat here. So,
no, I know a lot don't believe in the Big Bang.
Noah's Ark, Scott.
Oh, Noah's Ark. Oh, wow.
I call it the Magic Zoo boat.
Yeah, a lot of them don't believe in the Big Bang. Very fundamentalist types.
Yes, but, we're full of Kentucky's full of fundamentalists.
Yeah, but there are Christians that do believe in the Big Bang, and they would be less fundamentalist,
Yes. Well, I mean, they're people who they're only like I see those people as the only place that they're leaving the position for their God is something that we haven't falsified yet. Like we know how the universe, like our current, since expansion, we kind of know how everything developed. And that's so like they're accepting evidence. They're just sticking their God where we don't have evidence, I guess.
Yes. And instead of saying, which I think would be honest, gee, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The religion comes in and says, no, you are sure.
Yeah. But like where I live, all the people, like all the evidence in the world, and they go, no, my book says this. So my book is correct.
They don't trust.
2,000 or 4,000 years ago or wherever were way wiser than we are now.
Yeah.
It's a trust issue at the bottom of it. It's they trust their pastor, they trust these ancient books, they trust tradition, they trust things that go much older than, say, these new theories of science and models, and they just it's easy to do that because people want to feel confident. It's all about feeling confident in your beliefs. And so you appeal to much older things or people you trust, like your parents. Your parents told you God exists and that the world's 6,000 years old. You trust your parents. You trust your loved ones and things like that. Why should I trust Sean Carroll on that? Why should I trust all these scientists because they have degrees and stuff? And so that's really what it comes down to is just a trust issue, I think.
Yeah, they're very anti-intellectual.
And it's scary to admit to yourself that maybe I don't know that, maybe I could leave it there, because very few Christians that I speak to ever say they don't know. They claim they know God, It's never like in the middle. Well, I'm not sure, It's always absolutely, I know.
Well, I had a talk with a friend that goes way back to high school. And, he's a Christian, very strong. He used to preach in prisons and stuff like that. Went to prison himself. And now
that's where Jesus is.
Yeah, that's where Jesus is with all the sinners and people who need him. And so
jail. Like everybody I ever know found Jesus in jail.
Yeah, it's in jail. How ironical. And then, so then he came to me the other day. He had just, we had just linked up after years. And he goes, so where are you at spiritually, if I can ask, Scott? And so I told him, well, I don't know, man. I'm just, non-dualism, philosophy, stuff like that. He goes, those aren't spiritual things, man. Those are empty philosophies and thoughts of men. And he was like, you can't trust man. Man will always mislead you and lead you down. It may sound wise. It may sound very warming to your heart and comforting, but the truth is not always comforting. It isn't always what you just want to believe, Scott. You have to believe what's true. And Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And you might not like to hear that, but see, I don't believe what man tells me. I believe what God tells me.
Yes, that's scary, isn't it? That's what.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because we never know what God's going to tell them.
Yeah.
Like right now, God is telling them that, hey, it's the end times or something, like some of them. So I'm I didn't mean to divert the conversation, and I'm sorry I took that phone call. But
good.
I gotta go, but I want to say
thank you, Virgo.
It always amazes me how it's always God that tells people things, but it never is God that tells people anything. It's
right.
Things. So that always amazes me. It's like
that's why I asked him, well, tell your God to tell me that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you stop talking for him, man? Get him to call me up on the phone, man.
Seems like he could talk loud enough we could all hear him.
Yeah,
it's
all powerful.
Well, God told me, and then when you go drill down, there was a guy who came and he told me something, and I just knew it was from God. It's so weak.
It's so weak, man. It is, and it's scary because if you think about what people are capable of doing in the name of God, because God is the authority, for them, so they'll kill you over that.
Oh my
God!
They
do.
When I'm looking at the Iranian war right now,
mm-hmm.
I mean, just looking at it religiously, which it has an element of religion in there. You have
an element. Yeah, 3 of the Abrahamic religions are involved.
Yes.
All 3 of them.
And they all think that their particular God wants them to do a particular thing.
And they all
worship like the Iranians, the Shiites, those religious fanatics, they're thinking, oh, well, God wants us to destroy the evil Americans and Israelites.
And the Zionists, yeah.
And then you got the American crazy fundamentalists,
mm-hmm.
and they're being told, well, God wants you to go and
for the second coming. Yeah. It's like I said, the Iranians, the Muslims, they want to usher in the golden age of Islam. The Jews want to usher in the Messiah, the Messiah, and the Christians, they want the second coming of Christ to happen. This war is supposed to do that.
Yeah, only a part of the Jews actually are interested in that.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like half of Jews are atheists. So,
yeah. There's a lot of Jewish people that are not religious, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Iranians that don't like the authoritarian extremists either. Yeah, they're not necessarily that way either. And then there's a lot of Americans. They're not
that too. That are not really that religious.
Yeah, right.
It's funny when you see these sides, wanting to kill each other, all believing they're doing what God wants them to do. It's so
the same God. It's the same God too. Like my mom's Christian and she will not admit it. But like if you go back through just the the following that God through there, it's the same God. And so I told her that. She's like, I do not worship Allah. And I was like, it's the same God. Like y'all culturally appropriated, the Jewish God, and the Muslims done the same thing to Christianity.
That's why the Jews, they feel like they have the upper hand there, because they're like, look, man, we started this. Y'all are the outsiders. Y'all are like the Mormons of the Christianity.
Yeah, well, actually, I think like Yahweh comes from like somewhere, like has Babylonian somewhere. You know what I mean? Like he was like a storm god or something in those things. So actually, they got him from somebody else too. So
yeah, the Canaanites, the Yahweh was the storm god.
Yeah,
and Zoroastrianism.
Yahweh came from ancient Canaan.
Yeah,
the ancient Canaanite belief.
Why don't we hear much about his wife anymore, though? Ashtara.
She lost her popularity somewhere.
Yeah, they removed all her trees out of the temple, and what happened to that?
Very anti-women. Like all religions are very anti-women.
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, Robin, these religions are very anti-woman. Gotta agree with you on that.
I love your poster of
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, I had. I'm sorry, my stroke. Sometimes I'll just lose words. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Marilyn Monroe is like iconic. I think
she was a beauty. She was a beauty.
I consider her the classic American beauty queen.
Yeah.
But anyway, I gotta go. Nice meeting you, Robin and Scott.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, man. We'll see you next time.
All right. You have a good one.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, and Exit Music kind of made a correction there. Yeah, I remember that. It was El and Asherah. That's right. El was it evolved into, I think Yahweh was once a host god, and then he kind of like climbed up to be the Jewish main god. They wanted one main god, and Yahweh.
Well, they back then each little tribe or like that right there had their own god. Or not tribe, but like the people that they battled had their own gods too. That was just because they believed in more than one god, but they believed that this was the god that helped them. It was the one that they worshipped. And how that that evolved eventually into he was the only god, because I guess they came out the victors, throughout the history, to where their god survived.
And are you familiar with Gnosticism?
I know a little bit about it, like the demiurge, right? That's the Gnostics. You're talking about the Gnostics, like
yes,
early Christianity. Yeah. Oh, and they actually still exist too. I know that there's a few of them, but like that's the demiurge, right?
Yep. I think if I'm not mistaken, Gnosticism looks at Yahweh as that demiurge. I think like. Like the creator of the material world, and then he's called demiurge, so he's kind of seen as like this malevolent, arrogant, ignorant demon.
And then like Jesus came and shared some kind of secret knowledge with the Gnostics. How to leave this planet, like how to get away from this god or whatever. I haven't studied it a lot. I'm just going on what I've heard or whatever.
Oh yeah. I've heard about it a lot, and it actually solves a lot of problems.
Yes. It certainly fits better than the all loving, all powerful, all
Yeah, it's like, stop bullshitting me, man.
There are contradictions all in the Christian version of God, I think, and probably I haven't studied Islam a lot, but I think that what I know of it there's a lot of contradictions in it too, actually.
Yeah, it sort of like emphasizes knowledge over faith or obedience, and so it's kind of like a mystical, dualistic sort of worldview. And so it looks at the material world as this separate, flawed world of evil, but the salvation is going to come from secret knowledge. It solves a lot of things, but it's got some weird, very Jewish mystical type of influences there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like 2026, and we still got, we went to the moon, and we still have people who think they're just 6,000 years old. It's like the world we live in.
Barely out the jungle. we're all we are is we're shaved apes with MAGA hats on.
I told you I quit shaving, and I definitely am not wearing a MAGA hat.
No.
Like I may be the only Kentucky person that does not wear a MAGA hat, but
that's got to be rough.
It's not too bad. Like the town I live in is pretty small, so I've known most everybody here all my life, and they know how much I hate Trump. Like I have not ever been silent about that, and they just see me as the crazy lefty with all the cats. So, yeah,
crazy woman.
Yeah, but they, but they're not in any way mad at me. Because they're like, oh, Rob, it's just Robin. She's just nuts. That's pretty much what they say.
Oh, don't listen to her. She's a witch.
I did used to be a witch now, but not no more. So
yeah,
I gave up all that, all my magic at the same time.
All that magical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's good to just face reality on its own terms, man. It's not good to look and hope for things that are just wishful, because it can bite you in the ass. I mean, I understand that there's something to say about hope and faith and all of this kind of stuff. It can give you strength in times when you need it, but for the most part, man, you just get let down and you sort of burn yourself and you burn others that you've convinced into it. So
I see hope is like I think hope is something we have to have a little bit of, I think it keeps us from slipping into just like the bad version of nihilism or whatever, like hopelessness is a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And especially if you stay there very long. But
whenever it is in life that I've sort of relied 100% or mostly on faith and any sort of magical thinking, my outcomes in life have never really been that good.
No.
But it's when I really put action, like whenever I really just say, look, man, fuck all that. I just need to get out here and do what I got to do.
Yeah.
That's when things actually get better.
Yeah, because it's like you're doing it. Guess what?
Right.
Like, nobody else was doing it, but if you're not doing it, nobody's doing it.
And actually, you would want it that way, wouldn't you? Like, why would you want to look back in life and say, I was just carried the whole time?
Yeah, well, that's the part about religion that really drives me crazy is the fact that God gets the credit for all the good stuff that happens.
Mm-hmm.
People
none of the blame.
But then they are to blame for everything bad that happens to them. Like, if something bad happens to you, it's because you were sinning or you had made God unhappy or, And so, like, it's not God's fault then, it's the person's fault. Like, it's just a constant victim blaming scenario with, like, it's hard to, now that I'm out of it, I can see how much abusive cycle it is.
It's like, just like Trumpism. It's like these people, Trump can do no wrong. It's like their God can do no wrong.
That's
it's
a
like
cult. That's a cult.
It's
See,
like a
that,
bad marriage. It's like
Yeah.
you're with an abusive fucking husband or something. It's like, hey, at least he apologized and came back with some cake or something.
Trump
And
don't apologize though.
yeah, he
He
doesn't
never
even do that.
apologizes. Like Trump is like, he's a cult. Like, see, because like my better definition, like I always say, that the difference between a cult and a religion is that in a cult the leader is still alive, and in a religion,
Yeah.
the head guy is dead. And that's why I call Trump as a cult. Like, yeah, but he never apologized.
He's a draft dodging coward.
Yeah, we don't even want to get extra started on him, because I always do. Like I can't go like 10 minutes without insulting him somehow.
Oh yeah, you got to see that interview with what's his name, Jesse Ventura, and what's that guy's name? That was on Dancing with the Stars. He's got his own show now. News guy.
I don't know. I don't.
Damn. See, I'm getting old, man.
I'm really bad at names.
Yeah. Hold on.
Jesse Ventura though is not a big Trump fan. I know.
No, man, but he really went in on Trump. Yeah, with what's his name? I'm gonna get this guy's name in a minute. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Even though this is way off topic.
Yeah, way off topic. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just gotta play it. It's just fucking funny.
It's never a bad time to
talk about Trump.
bash
Talk bad about Trump. That's right. Any opportunity I get, man. Hold on. It's about to come up right now. Goddamn premium ads. Here we go.
You do have music playing in the background, don't you?
Yeah, that's me. Just a filler.
Okay, I was just making sure it wasn't something that was bleeding through on my end. I don't think I have anything open.
Exactly. All right, here we go. Check this out. This is fucking funny. Let me get back to the beginning.
Oh, Pierce.
Yeah, Pierce Morgan. That's right.
He's a clown.
I thought you'd like this one. Come on, these damn ads. I got to get premium, man.
Yes, you do.
God.
I love it.
Good Lord. Good God. Here we go.
Well, Jesse Ventura is a former US Navy SEAL, a former professional wrestler, a former actor, and a former governor of Minnesota. We've had many memorable interviews over the years. I'm pleased to say he joins me again now. Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing good, Pierce. It's been a long time for you and I. I tried to retire, but unfortunately, they sent the Gestapo to my high school and they hit it with chemical weapons, which are a war crime. And that brought me back out of retirement to stand up against the war criminal.
Wow. Well, that sounds suitably dramatic.
Well, that's the way it happened. I mean, I was retired. I hadn't watched the news since the last election. My son said, "You're way better, Dad. You're not tense anymore. Keep it up." And then lo and behold, these ICE characters, I call them the Gestapo, and I think I can do that. And let me get something straight right now, Piers, so people know where I'm coming from. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I. My parents both fought in World War II. My father had 6 bronze battle stars in Europe. My mother was a nurse in North Africa, which predated Normandy, fighting Rommel, the Desert Fox, the greatest German general. Both my parents were World War II veterans. My brother and I are both Vietnam veterans and member of the Navy UDT SEAL. We both did 2 tours to Southeast Asia. So everyone in my family is a war veteran. I wanted to get that out right now so it'll help with the things that I'm going to say to you in the moments to come.
Hell yeah.
ICE agents came to your school, you said?
What's that?
You said the ICE agents came to your school.
Yeah, the ICE agents came to the school where I went to high school, chasing some guy down just like the Gestapo. And I heard people were offended calling them that. Really? I can tell you right now, if my parents would have been alive and they would have seen what happened in Minneapolis, they would have called it the Gestapo too. So they come to my school, they use tear gas and pepper spray at the school. Now, here's a question I have, Piers. My Uncle Emil fought in World War I, and he was gassed. He came home, but his life was ruined. He could never do anything. What did they do? They outlawed it. using chemical weapons became a war crime. Why is it that you can't use them on your enemy, but you're allowed to use them on your own people? That has always been, where is the media on this? You know, using chemical weapons against our own people, which is in essence a war crime.
Hell yeah.
I wouldn't describe the gas used by ICE agents as chemical weapons. I mean, that.
What? Man.
Yeah. Like, you better be glad you ain't in the room with Jesse.
Oh, yeah. Man, Prince Morgan kisses Trump's ass too much, though. That's the only thing.
Oh, my God. He is so bad. He is so bad. And why these people, I don't know. They just
go, oh, man.
That infers the weapons of mass
destruction. They're spraying people from 6 inches away right in their face. I can't use that in war. I wasn't allowed to carry tear gas or any type of chemical weapon in war. It's banned from war. It's considered a war crime. You can't use it against your enemy, but you can use it against your own people. Doesn't something ring wrong there for you, Piers?
Well, a lot rang wrong about what was going on in Minnesota, and I'm very glad that it has been resolved.
Resolved.
And I think
it hasn't been resolved.
Well, no, not completely, but
nothing's been resolved.
No, I understand.
We have 2 dead people here.
Yeah,
2 people were killed by the Gestapo here.
Yeah, I understand, and those investigations are ongoing.
There is no investigation.
Yeah,
they're not investigating that shit.
There's more than 2 people, though.
Yeah, there's more than 2 people. Yeah,
that's 2 that made the news. You know, because I would say mostly because they were white, and you know, what I mean, like, and I mean, I'm not saying I'm glad that something made the news. You know what I mean? Like, because I think that Alex Pretty's death was probably, you know, what caused something to finally be done.
Because he finally ran him out of town.
Even my senator, Rand Paul, who is about as, you know what I mean, like, I've never, since he became my senator, I probably never agreed with anything that he has said, except for, you know, he's very
anti-libertarian like type of guy. Yeah.
He's opposed to all wars, pretty much, you know.
Yeah. That's right.
And,
yeah,
and so he was against the boat strikes and everything, which I was glad about that too. But like he threw a fit over this Alex Pretty thing. Yeah. Partially probably because of the gun element, you know, because they took his gun, and he's a big NRA supporter and stuff. And but you know, he realized that this was getting out of hand. Like, he knew that they were getting ready to have an issue with the population.
An overreach of the government, yeah,
that there was going to be something come up. You know what I mean? Like, he realized that people were going to rise up against that kind of stuff right there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because Minnesota rose up. Like, I think that they proved. I mean, they showed bravery in Minnesota that I'm not sure that Kentucky would ever show. You know what I mean? Like,
because they're confused by the cult of MAGA. You know, they're confused. They don't know what to do.
I mean, those people, they went out there every day. And even though that all that was going on, they didn't back down. They just kept going out there. And they showed bravery, I think. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
ICE activity that was going on and the way it was being conducted has been removed from Minnesota, which is a good thing. And I thought what happened was appalling. And I said so at the time. Let me ask you about...
Get tax expertise out.
Switch
to a TurboTax expert for $150. Yeah. All tax situations, all returns, $150, all in, no surprises. Now this is taxes.
You ain't lying.
Spring, the unofficial new year for tool people. New jobs, new projects.
You know, you can get like five
view of this wall.
Like,
yeah, I'll get it.
Well, here's how I feel about it. There's a simple thing as a leader. And you know this, having been in the military. Trump wouldn't know it because he's a draft-dodging coward. But anyway, it's this. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids. Because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own? So I'm calling right now for Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son. You know, after all, he's had 3 wives. He's had kids by each wife, and nobody's ever served in the military. To my knowledge, a Trump in the last 100 years has never done military service. Well, Barron, you can change that. Enlist in the United States military right now. Do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. I want to see a Trump in the military. Everybody in my family has served. So I think I can say that with all due confidence. Come on, Trumps. Don't just reap the benefits of this free world. Somebody put on the uniform, and that's you, Barron. And I heard the excuse that Barron might be too tall. David Robinson served on active duty. He was 7 feet tall before he ever went to the San Antonio Spurs basketball team. David Robinson went to the United States Navy Military Academy. He's one of my officers, not directly, but he would have been.
Okay, look, it's one argument that a Trump should serve. That's a perfectly reasonable argument to make. A lot of people feel that way, but it doesn't change what's going on in Iran.
Oh yeah, because that's more important than.
Bone spurs are probably hereditary, though.
Yeah, they are.
Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that all the responsibility of no Trumps in war falls on Barron. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But I just get the feeling they're probably just your typical rich little kids, spoiled as fuck.
Well, yeah, but
they never got to do shit. They ain't got to do nothing.
Yeah, but you got to imagine that growing up as Donald Trump's child, like, it can't be. Like, I would not. Like, I don't care how much money they got. I would not want to be one of his kids.
Oh, hell no. Just imagine.
I mean, nobody knows, what the cost of that is. And, like, if we were going to send any Trumps to war, I would say Don Jr. would be a good Eric, maybe Don Jr. And they're not in any shape to do war or any competence. So,
yeah, they're not cut out for that life, not at all.
What is your view of this war? Do you think it's a legitimate war? Many people think that the Iranian regime has been the instrument of terror through the Middle East for 40
Of course they
years.
have been. Of course they have been, Piers. But wait a minute. Trump then calls you guys NATO cowards. Wait a minute. NATO is set up to protect. That means that if a NATO country is attacked, they will all join together to repel it. It doesn't go in reverse. It doesn't mean if one of the NATO countries starts a war that all the others have to join in. That ain't part of the deal. The deal is protection, not aggression. And we started this war, and then he's calling you guys a bunch of cowards because you won't come in and help him. Well, why didn't he talk to you beforehand? And second of all, that isn't what the mission is. The mission is to protect the countries if they're attacked, not to go on the offense and do the attacking.
Okay, but do you think America was justified in joining Israel in the attack on Iran?
No.
Absolutely not. Because we started the war. I'm not for starting any war. We fired the first shot. Plain and simple. You want to put it in Rambo terms? We drew first blood.
Many would argue, of those who support the war, that Iran had drawn a lot of blood through this regime for a very long time. They had supported and propped up. Well, hang on, Jesse. They had armed groups like Hamas and the Houthis and Hezbollah for decades. They had wreaked utter havoc, drawing enormous amounts of blood, and that actually the reason America and Israel had to deal with them now was that they were imminently going to get a nuclear weapon.
No.
And they will use it. What do you say to that?
Well, here's what I say. Let's get the real history in. I listen to people like Congressman Lawler in New York. They all love to go back to 1979, the day the Ayatollahs took over. They conveniently don't go back to when I was alive. I'm a little older than them. Let's go back to 1953, shall we? When Iran had a Democratic elected president, the United States didn't like him. We pulled a coup d'etat, and what did we do? We stuck the authoritarian dictator, the Shah, in power. That's when the I Hate America started, was way back in the 50s when we interfered in their democratic elections. But how convenient we are that we forget that. Then in 1979, what took place? The Ayatollahs took over, who were probably worse than the Shah. But let's remember, the hatred of America was started by America. It was not started by the Iranians. We interfered in their government way back in the 50s.
The interference.
This is spitting facts right there now. Like,
oh, man, he goes in, boy. And it's going to get funny because he's going to talk about beating Trump's ass.
I mean, Pierce is so used to speaking to people who don't know history.
Right.
Like these people, like their history of January 6, 2020 is screwed up. You know what I mean? And they totally don't even know what happened in 1953 or whatever. Yeah.
Hell no. They're not interested. It doesn't support the narrative.
Yeah, and he's exactly right. That's exactly what happened. We took the democratically elected, man out. We did coup d'etat and installed the Shah, who was an illegitimate leader, according to
it's called blowback. Yeah,
seen as an illegitimate leader who, like the Shah, like he just funneled money. I mean, like he was so corrupt. And he just like sucked money out of the country is all he did. You know what I mean? Like, and
returned their democratic elected president, and then the dictatorship started with the Shah and now went to the Ayatollahs, and here we are today. But I'd like for Congressman Lawler to at least try to go back in history from before he was born to see what could have occurred, and that the United States was the person that caused the hatred between the two countries.
Jesse, I know you're very scathing of Trump now. There was a time when you were on more friendly terms. Here's a clip from you both at WrestleMania 20.
You know what? I think that we may need a wrestler in the White House in 2008.
When you look at that, Jesse, I mean, that was 12, 13 years ago, I think. Trump has also been made a WWE Hall of Famer, which I know has angered you.
Yep.
How do you feel now looking back at that clip?
I feel that simply I was doing my job. I was doing what I was asked to do at the WWE. Trump being a Hall of Famer is a tragedy. This guy has never been in the ring. I got a good friend, Ken Patera, Olympian, first man to overhead press 500 pounds, 25 years in the wrestling business. Kenny Patera is not in the Hall of Fame. Donald Trump does not belong in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He never earned it. You know what I had to do to get in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame? At one point in my career, I wrestled 63 consecutive nights in a row. That's how you get in the Hall of Fame. When I was referring to putting a wrestler in the White House, I was talking about me, not him. Absolutely. I was the former governor of Minnesota. I'm the only real former wrestler. I don't include him. He's only in the Hall of Fame because he stopped an investigation against Vince McMahon, a sexual stuff.
Yeah.
Do you intend to run again for governor and therefore maybe president?
I don't necessarily intend to run again, but I'm working on something that could send me straight to Washington and go face to face with this guy.
Really? What, you would run for president?
Maybe in the works.
I mean, he can't run for president again, so what would that involve?
Well, you'll have to find out, wait and see. I'm not going to spill it here.
You're not going to crash.
But I'll put it to you this way. Wait. Piers, I'll put it to you this way. We withstood the onslaught of the Gestapo in Minnesota. Well, I was taught in war to do this. You ensure that your backyard is secure. That's the first thing you do. Well, Minnesota's now secure. We've repelled the onslaught from Trump. Now it's time for us to go on the offense. So maybe it's time to send the Navy SEAL to Washington. Maybe it's time for a showdown between the Vietnam veteran and the draft dodger.
I don't know how safe, he needs to be careful though with his language.
Yeah, he gets a little excited.
I mean, don't think that Cash
Trump will sue your ass for some shit. He'll put you in behind bars. He'll Don Lemon your ass.
But I like him.
Do you actually mean a physical confrontation, or?
No, but if he wants it, he's in the Hall of Fame. Let's both get in the ring.
I mean, there is a UFC.
After all, he's in the Hall of he's in the Hall of Fame, isn't he?
Right. I mean, there is a UFC.
He's never ever had a match.
Right. There is a UFC whole event going on imminently at the White House. Maybe they could extend it and have you against Trump.
Yes.
Do you think he'd have the guts to do that? Are you kidding me?
Well, when he got shot, Jesse. To be fair to Trump,
wait a minute, Piers.
To be fair to Trump, when he got shot,
I'm going to tell you.
When he got shot, he got back up and said, fight.
He didn't get shot.
Oh yeah, right. You ever hear of a blade job? Anyway,
a blade? What, do you think it was fake?
Anyway, I don't know. Where's his scar today?
Somebody died, literally sitting behind him.
Yeah, they shot they shot him.
I don't know. Come on, Piers. You're going to tell me this guy's a big hero now?
I thought that day he was.
That's what you're going to tell me?
That day he was.
Really?
Yeah.
No, he
really?
wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, well.
Man, he's such an ass kisser, man. He's no fucking hero.
Yeah, that's so stupid. Yeah. He's the ear. Okay, you remember Vander Holyfield? Remember?
Yeah.
And bit part of his ear off.
Right.
Like Evander Holyfield, when you see him today, still has no ear.
Right.
Like that bite was. You know what I mean? Like, because cartilage don't heal. Like, it doesn't grow back. And and Trump, though, has no scar whatsoever. But I guess the only thing I can think of is that Holyfield didn't have maxi pads on the side of his head for a while. that must be the healing potion right there. Is to
maxi pad
the side of your head, and his
Hell
ear.
yeah. It was just a bad time of the month.
Then he accomplished what he wanted out of you guys.
No, I think you can be heroic on one day and you can be less heroic on others. But if you ask me, was he heroic when he got shot? Yeah, and I think those who try to pretend he wasn't actually shot or anything, it's ridiculous.
You're right. You know what I feel bad about was that if he'd have joined us in Vietnam, we might have won, huh?
No.
He could have put us. Why did he run and hide? He could have joined us and led us to victory.
I don't think anything would have changed the fortunes of the United States in that war.
Yeah, probably not, considered he called us all suckers, didn't he?
What would you say to Trump if you had a chance to speak to him?
Oh, God. He just did.
I'd prefer not to speak with him. I don't have really. What would I say to him?
I don't know.
You know, he's to me, he has no courage. He never has. I'll tell you what he is, Piers. Everybody knows these people. You're with a group of guys, and there's always one guy who will start the fight and then hold your coat. That's Donald Trump. He'll start the fight, but he'll hold your coat, and then the next day he'll tell everybody how tough he was.
Jesse Ventura, it's great to see you've lost none of your fighting spirit in the.
That was awesome. That was awesome, Scott. I hadn't seen that. That was awesome. Jesse may have a stronger case of Trump derangement syndrome than I do.
That dude, man. He'd probably kill that dude in the ring. Like, he'd probably just go to jail for it.
I love it, though. Yeah, Jesse, he ain't scared. That's for sure.
Well, look, man, I got to end this stream. We went all off topic, but it don't matter.
Yeah,
Shit.
but we ended in a happy place. Happy place.
That's right. That's right. Hey, thank you guys for jumping in. Hey, Stephen G. I read some of your comment, but it was kind of hard to follow. So my apologies, but
I hope you didn't have no Trump supporters jump on.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't get Jesse on.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys, for joining in. And we'll see you maybe tomorrow. I'll open up the debate floor, but I never get anybody really to call in and debate or anything like that. That's I'm tired of like just hearing myself talk and repeating the same shit. I feel like I don't know. But if you guys want to step up to the plate, man, maybe tomorrow I'll do the debate show if you guys can do it and we can come on and have a nice spicy time. Break it up a little bit. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here, guys. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk later.